Hey everyone, welcome back to Wix Fix. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Ryan, and in today's video, I'm going to show you 20 things you may not know about Wix Studio. Let's go ahead and get started. How is Wix Studio responsive? Wix Studio uses pixels with an asterisk. Now, if you are a designer, you probably know that pixels are not dynamic or responsive values. They are a set width and a set height, and you can't make them get bigger or smaller. So what does pixel with an asterisk mean, and how does that make it responsive? Well, if I come over here to the add panel and I just simply add a element here on the page, like an image, you'll see over here in these size properties, we have the width and the height set to pixel with an asterisk. The pixel with an asterisk basically signifies that this is the size of the image on this screen size. So right now this image is set to 290 with 194 height. If I go up to the editing size and let's say we bump this up to like 1440 and press apply. Then when we go back over to the inspector panel and look at the size, we can now see the width is set to 327 and 218. So the size of the image depends on what screen size our user is viewing it on. So if they're on a larger desktop like 1440, then the size of this image will be represented right here. However, if we go back down to a 1280 screen size, you can see it went back to its original size of 290 and 194. The good thing about this is even all the way down to mobile, we can see just how it is responsive here as well. Of course, here on mobile, we might want to make some adjustments just so it's actually visible here on mobile. But in short, that is how Wix Studio makes things responsive. Now let's go over responsive behavior. What is it and what do each of the options do? So here I am in Wix Studio and right now I have this section selected. Just for simplicity, I'm going to make the background color gray so it makes it more visually obvious what I'm doing. So if we head on over to the inspector panel at the very top, you'll see responsive behavior. This is just a little drop down with several different options, and depending on the element that you have selected, you can have different options here. For sections, we have three. We have scale proportionately, fixed height, and fit to screen. Scale proportionately basically means that the wider the website is, the taller that element gets with it. So if I make the website wider, you can see that the section is also getting taller. If I make the website thinner, the section also gets shorter. So it is proportionately scaling to the width of the website. Next, we have fixed height. So right now our section has a height of 500 pixels. If I make the website wider, you're going to see that the height of the section did not get taller. Same if we make the website thinner. The section stays the same exact height. Now keep in mind that the child element inside of this section, which is this image, this responsive behavior is still set to scale proportionately. So when I make the website bigger or smaller, image is still scaling proportionately. So you could run into issues if you don't set up the section correctly, and it could kind of cause things like this to happen, where the height of the section is then dependent on the child elements inside of it, just like this. So you can see it's getting taller now because the height of the image is scaling proportionately to the website. But the last option here for sections is fit to screen. So basically what this does is it sets the height of the section to be the exact height of your user's device. So if they are on a larger screen size or even a mobile device, this section will take up 100% of your user's screen. This is perfect for if you want to create interesting hero sections like this one. But now let's go up to the very top. We'll set it back to 500 pixels with scale proportionately turned on, and we can go ahead and make the section wide again. Now let's talk about the image. The image right here is set to scale proportionally by default. In fact, all elements inside of Wix Studio are defaulted to scale proportionately. However, with this one, we have a few more options. We have relative width, which this is kind of similar to the fixed height for this section. So when I make the website wider, you can see that the height of the image is not changing. Same if I make the website thinner, the height of the image remains the same. For fixed, as you can probably guess, if I make the website bigger or smaller, the image itself is not getting any bigger or smaller. You can also notice this by going over to the size area in the inspector panel and seeing that the width and the height are set to regular pixel values, which are not responsive values. If it doesn't have the pixel with an asterisk next to it or some other responsive value, then that will be a telltale sign that this is not going to be a responsive element. But last but not least, we have the option to stretch the image. Now we also can stretch images just by clicking this little icon. You'll typically see this one for any elements that can stretch, like images, videos, repeaters, containers, or even flex boxes. And the last thing we'll cover right here is for text elements. So again, by default, it's set to scale proportionately. However, we can set a custom scale, which will allow us to set a maximum and a minimum value for the font. Typically, this minimum value is what the size will be on mobile. So for like a heading text like this, I might set this to be like 24 and then 63 from desktop. I think that looks pretty good. Then we have wrap. So for example, if we have this element here and we type in a bunch of stuff, as soon as the content of this text element reaches the end of the bounding box of the element, it's gonna immediately wrap to the next line. Then we have fixed. So just like any other element, we have a fixed size here. So that means on any size of screen, the font size will remain the exact same. And last but not least, we have hug. So basically hug means the width will be reliant on how much text we have in the box. So if I say hello world, you can see that the text element is now only as wide as the hello world. If I say subscribe to Wix Fix, you will see that the text element width is the same size as what we typed. But in short, that is responsive behavior. You can easily set the behavior of the responsiveness for almost every single element inside of Wix Studio with just a click of a button. Site styles is a way for you to generate fonts and colors for your entire website. So instead of having to change every single text element or every single element with color, including the ones within apps you install, you can set your site themes and it'll automatically update all of the fonts and colors across your website. This is a huge time saver. So here in Wix Studio, all you have to do is come on over to the left-hand sidebar and press Site Styles. This is going to open up our typography and color options. At the very top, you'll see that we have the option for this little drop down here, and this is going to be for our heading fonts. And then down below that, we have the option for our paragraph fonts. Alternatively, you can go into each one of these individually and set up the settings manually. However, you might be asking, where do you get fonts from? And the best place that I know is going to be a place called Google Fonts. Here, you'll be able to find timeless and modern fonts that you can use on any projects completely free. So once you find one that you like, you can just press Get Font at the top right and download it. Once you have that font downloaded, you can then come over here to Font Styles. We can upload the font, press Upload Font, and just simply drag in the font right here. Once the font has finished uploading, we can go ahead and press Done, head back over to the font selection, and we can type in the font and just choose it. As soon as I switch it, you can see that not only did all of the fonts for all of our heading text update here in our site styles, but you'll also notice any heading text on our entire website has updated automatically to the new font. So let's go ahead and do that really quickly for the paragraph font as well. I think I'm just going to use this Varela Round option here. And you're going to automatically see it updated here, and it'll also update all of our fonts here as well. Now, one thing I do want to cover is if we click on one of our headings, here we'll be able to set the font. We can choose the font size. We can choose the design for it, the line and character spacing, and then we can even set a min and max size for the font as well. Typically, I like to set a minimum value just to ensure that on mobile devices, our font sizes is not too small. But now let's go ahead and move on over to colors. Here you'll see 5 different color palettes that we can set up. The first one is for your background and text. The second one is for action color. And then we have 3 more palettes that we can choose to use. Now for me, I like to use a website called Coolers or Colors. And up at the top right, we can generate a palette if we already have a couple colors. We can explore palettes. We can even use an image or logo to generate a palette for us. But for now, I'm just going to choose the Explore Palettes option. Since our website has a little bit of purple in it, I'm going to try to use the violet option for the filter to try to find a color that we can use. I think this one right here works pretty well. So we'll head on back over to Wix Studio, and I'm going to edit the entire color palette by pressing the pencil icon all the way to the left. Then I'm just going to paste in the hex code that I received from the Coolers website and press Apply. Now, if I go over here and I click on this and I change the background color, you'll now see our action color here. However, if I were to completely change the color here, you'll see that it automatically updated on the website as well. Stacks are a great way to group things together, and they also have a lot of function. So inside of Wix Studio, here we have a couple elements, let's say these different text elements and a button. And as you can see, there's not consistent spacing in between them and it doesn't look all that nice. Well, if I grab all of these elements by holding the Shift key on the keyboard, you'll notice that we have this option in the action bar to stack them together. And now that they are stacked together, we can actually head on down to item spacing and we can set a consistent spacing in between all of the elements. And that looks a lot cleaner. But not just that, as you can see from this drop down, we have a vertical layout, which is how it is currently, but we also have horizontal. So if I unstack this, let's say we wanted to have a second button here. Maybe instead of them just buying one 24 pack, maybe the user can subscribe to a plan where they receive this 24 pack every month. So if we do subscribe, and maybe we design the button a little differently, something like that, and we grab both of these buttons and stack these together, we can now see that these buttons are grouped together. Additionally, we could then stack the rest of these items together again, and now we have a stack inside of a stack, and it looks really, really clean. But it doesn't just stop there. Because these are grouped together as a stack, the stack is technically its own element with its own design properties. So if we come back over to the inspector panel under layout, maybe we don't want everything to be left aligned. So we can have the option right down here to align items. And you'll notice that everything gets centered inside of it. Additionally, maybe we want to add a nice little border around it. So what I want to do is come down to padding, and maybe we'll add like 24 pixels of padding on all sides. Then we'll come over to the design section and we'll open up the border and add a nice little color to it, make the border width 1 pixel, and for the corners, we'll round the edges to like 24. And if we preview the website and check it out, this is gonna be what our stack looks like, and you could see just how much effort was put into making it. It was very, very simple. Now let's talk about apps that you can add. Apps are great for adding more functionality or even design elements to your website. For example, if we take a look here in Wix Studio, if we head on over to the left-hand sidebar, we're gonna see this icon right here for App Market. If we click on this, here under App Manager, it'll give us a bunch of popular Wix apps that we can install on our website. For example, if we wanna create an e-commerce store, we can add the Wix stores. If we plan to offer services that people can book, then we can add Wix Booking. If we want a blog, we can easily add a blog right here. Additionally, if we switch the tab to App Market, here's where we're going to be able to find a bunch of third-party apps that we can use, some of which provide additional function and others provide cool design features. My favorite one being the flashlight cursor. Now I've already made a video on this before, which I will have linked in the description, and it's actually a really cool little app that adds a nice little animated cursor. But you can see even just when I type cursor, you can see all of the different type of things that we can check out here. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and add the Wix blog to our website. And once it finishes loading, if we head on over to the pages, you'll notice that it added 2 blog pages for us. We have the blog page, which is this one, which shows all of our posts. And then when a user clicks on one of the blog posts, it'll take the user to the blog post page where they can actually read the full article. And the cool thing is that this pulls from our site themes. So any of the fonts and colors choices that we set up from our site styles over here will automatically be used here in the blog app. And the cool thing is this is true for every single Wix internal app that you add to your website. Margin and padding are the best ways to help space things out on your website. If I go to add and I just add a basic shape to our website, and let's say I align it to the left and top. If we go down to position, we'll see docking, margins, and padding. On the outside of this, we'll see blue highlighting, and this is gonna be our margin. And if I add maybe 24 pixels of margin, you're gonna see on the canvas that it pushes the element down by 24 pixels because I added margin to the top. Now, if I add this margin to all sides by clicking apply to all sides, you're gonna see this icon now has 24 pixels of spacing all around it. Now I want to note that if I add a container to the page and I drag this icon and attach it to the container and send it to the top left, And then if I add 24 pixels of margin, you're going to notice it pushes it away 24 pixels from its parent container. So before, when I added the icon here, the parent container was the section itself. But in this case, since we attached the icon to the container, now when we add the margin, it's pushing it away from its new parent element, which is the container. Now, just for fun, I'm going to simply remove the margin for now. And now let's talk about padding. So if I grab this container here, and let's say we wanted to add a bunch of elements in this container, but we wanted all of the elements to be 24 pixels away, but we didn't want to have to add margin to every single element here in the container. What we could easily do is just grab the container, scroll down to position, and we can select this inside box here. When we click this, it's going to open up our padding settings. So if I add 24 pixels of padding, you're going to see that we now have space on the inside, and this is going to be our padding. So now we can add a bunch of elements in here, and all of those elements are going to be 24 pixels away from the edge of the box. Additionally, with sections, we can come down to the position tab. We'll see we can't add margin, but we can add padding. So if we add like 5% padding, you're going to see that now on all sides, we have 5% padding. And if I grab this container and I stretch it, you're going to see that this box took up the remaining space that was available in the section. So it's not going to go past the padding that we applied to the section. It's only going to take up whatever was left. Responsive AI is one of the #1 features built into Wix Studio. It'll help you build a tablet and mobile breakpoints with just one click. So here in Wix Studio, we have a very simple section built. And if we go ahead and switch on over to mobile, you're going to see that all of these elements here are very small, and we would not be able to read anything on this little section here if we actually published and pulled it up on a mobile phone. So how can we fix that? Well, one, we could do it manually if we wanted to. However, if we just select this section, there's going to be this option in the action bar called Responsive AI. If we click this and press Generate Now, and this is going to go through all of your breakpoints and make everything look nice. And once it's done loading, it's going to enter a preview mode where we can check all the breakpoints. And if we go down to mobile, this is what it's going to look like. Now I will say with these buttons, it might be nice if it added a little bit more space, but guess what? That is a super easy thing to change. So because the rest of this looks perfect, I'm going to go ahead and press Apply Design. Then what I can do is go ahead and grab this button, and I can use the breadcrumbs to grab the stack. And in the inspector panel, I can add like 12 pixels of spacing here, and boom, we have a fully responsive website that looks good on all breakpoints, and it literally took me about 30 seconds. The Layers panel is the best place to help manage all of your layers on your page. To access the Layers panel, all you have to do is come over here to the Layers icon and open it up. Now, as you can see, we have our header and our footer, and then right here we have our section. If a section or even a global section has a drop down, then that means we have content inside of it. For this one right here, we can see we don't have anything in it. So what I'm going to do is just simply come over to Quick Add, and we're going to add an image. Now, if I go back over to the Layers panel, you'll be able to manage this layer here. If you press the 3 dots, you can see all of the different things that you can do with this element. You can place it in a container, hide it, or delete it. One important feature of Wix Studio's layer panel is that everything is layered top to bottom. So for example, we have this image right here that's sitting on top of this other image. And you can see that being represented here in the layers panel as well. But let's say we wanted this background image to actually be on top of this image. What we can do is just come over to the layers panel. We can either grab the top image or the bottom image and just switch the positions just like that. And you can see it represented here on the canvas. This is especially useful if we have an image in the background, but maybe we don't want to move something just to grab the background element. We can actually just head on over to the layers panel and we can select it that way. And also, let's say for tablet mode, we do not want this image to show. So we can head on over to press the 3 dots and press hide. Then maybe for mobile, we want to show that image again. So as you can see, when we have a hidden layer, it will have a little eye icon that's crossed out. And when we hover over it, it's going to allow us to show that element again. So here, maybe on mobile, we want to re-show it. That way on desktop, we have this image tablet, we don't. And then for mobile, we have it again. So as you can see, the layers panel is a fantastic way to manage the layers on your page. Global sections inside of Wix Studio are sections that can appear on multiple pages. For example, with this website, we have this navigation bar at the top, which you'll see highlighted in green, signaling that it's a master section. Same with our footer at the very bottom. These are global sections because they appear on all pages or even just pages that we select. One important thing I want to note about global sections is anything that you do to one global section will affect anywhere else on your website that has that global section. So for example, here in Wix Studio, if we wanted our header button to match maybe our branding colors here, we could change the button color to match. And if I switch over to a new page that has this header, you'll notice that it updated here as well. But it doesn't just stop at headers and footers. Maybe for this page, we want to add some sort of call to action above the footer, but we want this to appear on all pages. So what we can do is right click on the section, go up to set as a global section. And now our global sections panel will open up on the left-hand side, and we can name this section as maybe call to action. And if we press the three dots, we can say add to, and for this example, let's add it to page 8. So we'll go ahead and press apply. Now, if I switch on over to page 8, we will now see our call to action here. Now, of course, we can just use the layer panel to switch the order of the sections. That way it's in the proper position. Animations and effects is one of the best ways to help spice up your Wix Studio websites. For example, here we have a nice little section here in Wix Studio, but maybe we want to add a little bit of flair. So for example, let's grab this cell right here, and we're going to come over to the inspector panel, and we're going to switch on over to the animation and effects tab. I just want to have this cell kind of appear when the user views the section. So what I'm going to do is come over to entrance animation and press add. Then we have a bunch of different options for us to choose from. Maybe for this one, we want to do float. When we click on it, it's going to give us a little bit of a preview. And if we need to adjust it, we can head down to the bottom and press adjust animation. Here we can choose the direction from which the float happens. We can also change the time and delay. But it doesn't just stop at entrance animations. As you can see, we have hover, click, scroll, loop, and even mouse effects. And you can get lost just playing around with all of the different effects that you can apply to your website. But the last thing I'm going to show you is how you can make a custom hover interaction inside of Wix Studio. So I'm going to press hover and press add. Now we can choose one of these presets here if we want to. However, I'm going to switch on over to the custom tab and click create custom animation. Now what I want to do is maybe grab this background vector image and we'll rotate it maybe 15 degrees. Then we'll grab the actual main container from the layers panel and maybe we'll grow it or scale it up to maybe 105 for the X and Y, and we'll go ahead and press done. Now when we preview the website, we should see this one kind of float in, and if we hover over this, we're going to get a really nice little effect here. And as you can see, this no code animation is so easy to set up inside of Wix Studio. To create easy grids inside of Wix Studio, all you have to use is cells. Here in Wix Studio, let's go ahead and recreate this section above. To do so, all we're going to do is select the section. We're going to come down to layout and we're going to choose this option right here. And when we check this out, you'll be able to see that we have two cells here. It basically just split the section in two. Then we're going to select this left grid cell over here, and we're going to split the cell horizontally. So now we have one big cell over here on the right, and then we have two smaller cells over here on the left. If we grab the section using the breadcrumbs, we're going to come down to the gaps and we're going to add 20 pixels horizontally, 20 pixels vertically. Then we're going to come to columns and we're going to set this first column to 40%. And for the rows, we're going to set this top one to 320. And we're going to set the second row to 425. And then last but not least, we're going to come down to padding for the section and we're going to add 3%. And now we just need to add our content. So as you can see, it was super simple just to set up this section. But the cool thing is if we grab the actual grid cells themselves and we use our shift key on the keyboard and grab this one over here, you'll notice in the action bar, we have an option to swap them. And it makes it super easy for us to be able to customize our section grids and switch things around, even on other breakpoints. Wix Studio containers are a great way to create even more grid customizations within cells, repeaters, flexboxes, or in place of cells if you don't want to use cells. So for example, here in Wix Studio, if I wanted to, maybe I wanted to within this cell have an image above and below this text element here. Well, one thing I could do is come over to the add panel and drag out a container. Or I can grab this stack right here, right click and place it in a container. Now what I want to do is go ahead and stretch this container so it fills up the cell with its padding. And I'm gonna grab this container and I'm gonna come over to layout in the inspector panel and you'll see the option for advanced CSS grid. I'm gonna go ahead and press apply. Now here what I want to do is go ahead and select one of the pre-designed layouts. And I'm going to choose the 1x3 option here. When that happens, you'll see that this container gets split into 3 grids. Now, what I want to do first before I click off of it is actually add maybe 24 pixels of spacing or gap in between each one of these rows. I also want this stack to be placed in the middle row here. So what I'm gonna do is grab this stack, and if I scroll down to position, we'll now see this option for location in grid cells. And you can see when I hover over it, it's going to highlight the one that we want to place it in. So I'm gonna make sure I click the middle one here. And I'm also gonna come down and remove the margin. Next, I just wanna add the images to the top and bottom. And once we choose our images, now we can go ahead and adjust the grid ever so slightly. So what I want to do first is actually grab this middle row here. And if we come down to the layout panel, we'll see this option to change the size or the height of the row. So I'm going to choose this and set this to minimum value. And you'll see the other 2 rows kind of adjust in size for us. And what I just showed you is a great example of when you would want to use container grids versus cells, because maybe you want one grid cell to be turned into a grid itself. And that is a prime example for why you need to know how to use containers. How can we round the corners of a video player? So here in Wix Studio, if you've ever gone to the add panel, you'll notice that we have a video option here, and we also have a video player down below as well. Now, one of those is a video box, and one of them is a video player. Now, the main difference between these is if I scroll down to the next section where there's a repeater on the left-hand side and a repeater on the right-hand side, you'll notice one major difference. This repeater on the right-hand side has a video player in it. And then this one over here on the left, unfortunately, this video box cannot go inside of the repeater. And also with the video box under contour, if you apply this, you can add the rounded corners if you want to. However, with the video player, we don't have the contour option in the design settings. So how can we add the rounded corners here to the video player? Well, what I like to do is right click, and I will place this video player in a container. Then inside of the container, I will come over to add and add a shape. Now with this shape, I'm going to change the shape to a corner, and I'll choose this option here, and then I'll change the shape color to white. Now I don't like it to be this size, so maybe we'll do something like 24 pixels. And then I'm gonna send this to the top left, just like that. So now you can see the top left corner is now rounded. I'm going to copy and paste this round corner. I'm going to scroll down to adjust, and under the flip option, I'm going to flip it horizontally. And I'm going to go back up to the top and align it to the right top. Then we'll copy and paste it again. We'll scroll down, flip this one vertically, and then we'll just send this one to the bottom. And we'll copy and paste it one more time. We'll send this one to the left, and then we'll flip this horizontally. Perfect. So as you can see, with just a little bit of work, we now have a video player with rounded corners. Site assets is a great way to save your designs so that you can use them on other sections, pages, or even other websites. For example, here in Wix Studio, let's say I really like the way I designed the stack, and maybe I want to use this on future sections, other pages, or even other websites, but I don't want to have to copy and paste it over and over or anything like that. So what I can do is grab the stack, and if I right click, you'll see an option at the very bottom called Save as an Asset. If I go ahead and click this, this little box will appear. Now I'm just going to give this a very basic name like General Text Stack. And then underneath that, we have an option to save it as an asset or save it into a library. Now, saved assets is typically where I just throw in general design assets. However, if I have a client that already has a set library with their fonts and colors, I can actually just save it directly to their library. But like I said before, this is just a general tech stack, so I'll just save it into my saved assets and press add. Now, if I scroll down to the next section, and let's just pretend this is another page or website, all I have to do is come over to the add panel, and under quick add, we have the option for assets. Now here we can see the other library. So as you can see, I have an old client who has color and typography saved, and I also have assets used for their website, but I saved this into my general saved assets. So I'm just going to click this here, and here we will have our general tech stack. So all I'm going to do is drag this out onto the page, resize it a little bit, and maybe position it inside of this cell. And just like that, we have our saved asset, and we didn't even have to do any extra work. But it doesn't just stop there. It is very easy to update. Let's say we want this one to be left aligned. In this circumstance, we can do that very easily, and we can even update the text elements as well if we wanted to. Did you know that for SEO purposes, it is very important to only have one heading, one element per page? For example, here in Wix Studio, we have a page called Our Products. And let's say we liked this style of stack so much that we copied it and we pasted it down below in this section down below and changed the text. Now, the problem with this is because we have a heading 1 at the very top and we copied and pasted it down here, you're telling Google and other search engines that the page is about our products and fully organic. And that's causing some conflict because it doesn't know which one to prioritize. Leaving one heading 1 per page is going to help search engines know exactly what that page is for, and it's going to tell them exactly what to promote when people are searching on the search engine. So how can we fix this? Well, we have two options. The first one is if we grab this text, we can head on over to the theme and we can switch this over to a heading 2. That solves all of our issues, and these designs are coming from our site styles. However, maybe we like the size of this font, so how can we fix that? Well, another option, instead of switching the theme, we can scroll down to HTML tag, and we can switch this from H1 to H2. And that's going to help tell search engines what the page is about, and it'll know what to prioritize when people are searching. What is CMS? CMS stands for Content Management System, and this is going to help populate your website with just a database. So here we are in Wix Studio on the About page, and maybe we want to list off some of our employees that work at this company, right? So here I have a simple repeater, and in this repeater I have an image, I have a text for the person's name, and then I have a text element for the job title. Instead of going to each one of these and changing out the image and changing out the text for each and every single one of them, what we can do instead is actually use CMS. So to set this up, we're going to head on over to the left-hand sidebar, and you'll see an option for CMS. Now we can create a collection from scratch if we wanted to, or we can start with a preset. For now, I'm going to select a preset, and I'm going to choose the team option right here. Now, because we chose a preset, it's going to create a bunch of fields for us, and it's going to populate some of them just as example items for us. But if you need to add more fields, you can head on over to the right and press add new field, and you can see all the different options that you can choose from. For now, I think I'm okay with this, and I'm going to go exit out of this. But once we're back on this page, what we can do is actually grab the repeater, and what we're going to do is connect this to CMS connections. So you can see this in the top right next to the animations and effects. Once we click on that, we're going to add a data set. Now we're going to be able to choose which data set we want to connect it to. So for example, we don't want to connect it to our projects. This one's for our team. So I'm going to say the team data set and press create. Now that this is connected to the database, you're going to notice that it added 3 more items, because if you remember from the database, it gave us 6 examples. So when we connected it to the database, it's going to add 6 items here. Now, all I need to do is select this image, and in the inspector panel, under image source, we can connect the image to the photo in the database. So you're going to see that automatically update for everyone. For this text element, we want this to connect to the person's name. And last but not least, their job title is going to connect to their job title. There you go. That's how you use CMS to help populate your website. And it's so much simpler than having to manually do it within repeaters. Now, if you want to learn about dynamic pages and how to populate those, I actually have a full series on CMS, so I will have that linked in the description below. So let's say we want our header to follow us down the page, because as of right now here in Wix Studio, if I go ahead and preview the website and I start scrolling, you're going to see our navigation header is scrolling up with the website, but maybe we don't want that. So what can we do? Let's grab the header, and what we're going to do is scroll down to position, and we're going to set the position type from default to pinned. And what that's going to do is it's going to overlay the section below it. So the first thing I want to do to kind of fix this is I want to scroll up to design and remove the background color. Perfect. And then I also want to give this section a little bit more room to breathe. So I'm going to go down to padding. And for this top one, I'm going to double click it. That way it's not linked to all sides. We'll set it to 140 pixels. So now when we preview the website and we scroll down the page, you're going to notice that the header is now following us down the page with us. Super easy. Sticky position is a really cool technique that allows elements to follow your user down the page as they scroll. For example, here in Wix Studio, maybe we want this stack to slowly go down the page with the user as they scroll down this section, and maybe we want it to end right here at this section end. So what we're going to do is just grab this element here. We're going to scroll down to position, position type, and we're going to set this from default to sticky. Now we have the option to add a top offset. So maybe for this, we want to set like a 10% offset here. And when we go ahead and press preview, as soon as we start scrolling, you're going to notice that the R product stack is now sticking with us until we reach the bottom of the section, and then it scrolls up with the rest of it. Super easy to set up and adds a little bit of interactivity to your website. Inside of Wix Studio, it makes it really easy to design and adjust elements. For now, we're going to be talking about the adjust section in the inspector panel. If I grab a container like this one right here and I scroll all the way down to the bottom, you're going to notice this option right here for adjust. Right now we have opacity, we have rotation, scale, skew, and translate. Now, why would I want to use this? Well, one reason is because these help you set up the initial states for your interactions. For example, if I want this section, if I want this to be set to 0 opacity, you're going to see that behind that we have an image. So when I go ahead and preview the website, here we're going to have an image. But let's say when we hover over this image, we want to see that paragraph text again, right? So if we go back into the editor, grab this container, and we add a custom hover effect, you'll see that the opacity is set to 0%. So if we bump it in the hover state to 100%, now it's going to be completely visible. So now when we preview the website and we hover over this, we are now going to see the paragraph that we created. And this is true for all of the different adjust options that we have here. So again, we can rotate this, we can scale it, skew it, translate it, and depending on which element you have selected, there might even be other options there as well. But in short, it's really there because it's really useful for creating the initial state for animations. And last but not least, let's talk about Site Checker. So what is Site Checker and what does it do? Well, if we head on over to the top left menu where we have the Wix Studio logo, and we go down to Tools, under Tools, you'll see an option for Site Checker. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to check the page for any mistakes. And once it's done checking the page, here is what we're going to see. We're going to see a couple missing links from the buttons because we did not link these buttons to any pages. So for example, if I go ahead and link this to a new page and I go ahead and check again, you're going to see it now has a check mark. So that means we have fixed that issue. And if we go through all of the other problems that we have here and fix those issues and press check again, and all of our problems have been resolved, then that will mean the design for our website, not including SEO and premium plan and domain, but the design itself is ready to be published. But that's basically going to wrap it up for today's video. If you all did enjoy, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel for more Wix Studio content coming out really soon. Thank you all again, and I will see you all in the next one.